Hi, welcome to Who's Your Paddy. In this week's episode, I want to address a common misconception that in order to study jazz music, one must know classical music. This is not true. For example, when we study Hindi, it is not necessary to study Sanskrit. So even though classical music is a parent to jazz music, one need not study classical music in order to become a jazz musician. One great example of this is Horace Silver, the legendary jazz pianist, who did not study classical piano. So now, I personally went from being a classical pianist and then I left that and became a jazz musician. I started studying jazz. And through this transition, I went through some advantages that I faced and some disadvantages. And I'm going to talk about that today. One advantage of moving from classical to jazz was harmony and chords. Classical music is very complicated when it comes to harmony and has a very wide range of harmonic understanding. For example, if you take Bach, this is a beautiful piece, but if I take these notes which are separated and I play them together, I get beautiful chords. And these are also applicable in jazz music because the common underlying theory of harmony is the same. Another advantage of moving from classical to jazz music was sight reading. In classical music, sight reading is far more complicated, and in jazz music, it is far more simple because the focus of jazz music comes to improvisation. Now, when we talk about improvisation, that is one disadvantage that I faced. Today, when we study classical music, we don't study improvisation in classical music, even though Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, they could all improvise. But it is not done today. We play piece after piece and we learn how to play it and perform it with our own interpretation. But in jazz music, we are mostly improvising. And this, if you're doing classical music for many years, you're not used to, and that is difficult to make the transition. Another disadvantage that happens when you move from classical to jazz is the rhythm and feel of jazz music, which is different from the rhythm and feel of classical music. And I spoke about this in my first episode, the accent of music. Now, the reason why actually a lot of people talk about having a foundation in classical music is because they feel that the technical virtuosity that you gain from classical music will help you be a jazz musician. This is true, you can use that virtuosity, but it is not necessary. When trying to be a jazz musician, you can develop technical abilities on your own. So to sum up the whole thing, I want to tell you that if you want to study a genre of music, just study that genre of music and don't have the misconception that you need to study something else in order to be good at something else. So leave your comments below and I'm looking forward to hearing from what you have to say and see you next week.